Everyone, and welcome to the Talent Gap Fireside Chat, where we talk about causes of and solutions to the talent gap. I'm your host, Pete Strauss, and joining me today is John Kwarsick. He is the founder of Kwarsick Consulting. Welcome, John.
Pete, how you doing? Happy New Year. Great to be here.
Doing well, and Happy New Year to you as well. Could you give our audience a little background on yourself and your career thus far?
Yeah, 30 years in the sales leadership space, probably 15 in GRC and security. And now I'm getting ready to launch an exciting new initiative, and we'll talk about that addresses a very big problem that people are not paying attention to. And it is involving two of our favorite letters in the English language, the letter A and the letter I.
Absolutely. Could you give our audience a little background on your career, I guess, leading up to this point?
Yeah. Recently, I've been working as a consultant to some GRC companies, one being Lockthreat. Before that, I worked at Microsoft as a director in their cybersecurity practice, leading a bunch of sellers, selling into the manufacturing OU. Before that, I was an evangelist at Checkpoint, and evangelists are basically highly technical people in that particular skill set that Checkpoint has, which is firewalls and IoT. And then before that, I worked for various companies in first and second line sales management roles.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Lockthreat, actually. I had Rob Young on the podcast recently in their marketing department. Yeah, so good guy.
Great guy, for sure. By the way. And he's doing an outstanding job.
Awesome. Well, what do you think about the talent gap in security broadly? Do you think that's a real thing?
Yeah, people are obsessed with trying to find cybersecurity talent, but I'm telling you what, that's not the real crisis. It's not. And here's why. What we should be looking for is we should be looking for people that are becoming very well skilled with AI and understanding how to work alongside AI agents. That is not cybersecurity people right now. And in fact, it's creating a massive gap. We're hiring for the wrong skills. And I think my prediction is, and I have a prediction here, that in the next 5 years, we won't even have SOC analysts. The tools will take that away, okay, and do that job. What we do need, though, are people in security that know how to work the integrations and workflows and also be able to work with the psychology that's involved with this. Because let's face it, Pete, I mean, every GRC company and every security company has an AI product right now. I mean, I chat GPT'd it, I Claude it, and everyone. Here's the problem. They don't work with each other. So you can have literally 50 different AI agents in your company. How do you know they're all working? How do the executives know that? And here's the other problem. Let's just say I've been doing the job as a SOC analyst for the last 5 years. Now, all of a sudden, this tool comes in and does my work that I've been doing for the last 5 years. How do you feel about that? I mean, what's the psychological safety? And how is your company addressing that culturally? These are the questions that are coming up. And this is why we're seeing 68% failure of AI initiatives. It's not because of the tools. It's on the human side of the equation. And companies are not even looking at this.
Yeah, well, I certainly see that in recruiting. There's so much talk about applicant tracking systems and how automated they can be nowadays. And I think generally most hiring issues boil down to more people and process versus technology problems, but everybody blames the technology. You know, technology is just a tool at the end of the day. You need intelligent people to connect these systems, like you were saying, and manage these systems. I mean, I could foresee a future where you have AI managers, versus people managers, and people that are architects, but less, I guess, like process driven when it comes to actually executing tasks. The tasks are being replaced by, or we don't need humans to execute tasks anymore. We have AI to execute tasks. But then we need somebody to architect the systems that perform those tasks. And I always wonder, what are we going to do with the people that, one, exist in the field now that are those SOC analysts that are quickly being replaced? And that's happening already, I think. And how do we create a pipeline for entry level people if all the entry level roles are being automated away? Do you have any thoughts on how we can create a pipeline of talent without those jobs?
I do. So let's go back first and just address what you just talked about. Organizations are solving the wrong bottleneck. Here's the questions they're asking today. What AI tools should we be using? Okay. Should it be CrowdStrike? Should it be, ServiceNow? Should it be Microsoft? And then how do we deploy the technology? So they'll have the vendors come in, they give them the demos, and then they got to deploy it. And then what's our AI strategy? Those are the questions they're asking now. What they should be asking is, are people psychologically ready for this fundamental change? That's the first question. Do we have the workflows that can absorb the AI collaboration? Meaning you already got an existing GRC platform, or you have a security platform. Do we have the workflows that tie all this together? And then finally, can our culture handle the identity disruption that this creates, which leads to your question. How do you diagnose this? And how do you find people? Well, first of all, you got to have a way of looking at the problem differently. And what I said, I have something very exciting. I actually have created a tool, a diagnostic framework to allow companies to find these issues and where they lie. As I've gone out and looked at 41 different deployments in companies, I'm finding some amazing things. I'll give you a simple one. Half of the executives at the C-level of these companies don't know how to prompt. They're still using Chat GPT as a, search on steroids. They cannot create a workflow if their life depended on it. So if I'm a CISO and I don't know how to create a workflow with AI, with Claude, and be able to go out and debug it, how do I expect my people to do this, right? How do I hold them accountable? That's the first thing. The second thing is, how do you find the skill set? I'd say you're going to have to rechange the hiring profile of the people that you're looking for and have them become AI fluent, and then change the culture of your company to allow people to come in and learn. And this is not something that companies do well. They don't allow people to make mistakes. They don't allow people to experiment. They don't allow people to build things. It's usually, here's your job, here's the lane you're in, and here's what you got to do. And that's like a SOC analyst. They sit down at a console, they look at a bunch of different logs, they use different tools to diagnose stuff, but are they allowed to build anything? No, they're not. So that shift has to take place because, quite frankly, it's happening right now. I mean, the GRC space is going to grow to 44 billion by 2029. And a big part of that is going to be agentic agents out there working in the workflows and working in the company. If you don't know how to diagnose this, fix it, create new stuff, and then be able to tie it all together, you're really going to have a skills gap. And that's one of the things that the hiring profile has to be different. Looking for people with those AI skills, and then changing the culture within the company to allow this to happen. That's one of the huge blockers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I think in order to be able to, prompt AI properly or architect these systems or connect these systems together, I think you need a certain level of intelligence more so than you need specific experience in X thing. And it's like most hiring managers and most job descriptions, they're often just listing a bunch of tasks again. And if AI is replacing tasks, then you need people that more can think than just execute on tasks.
That's right.
Creativity and a lot of these intangible things. But how do you put that on a job description,
Yeah. So I can help there. I would say that, if you're looking at human adoption, and human adoption is, how are you going to use the tech? There's really 8 questions. I will bring them out here. So first is the team ready to redefine the way that they're using AI collaboration? Are they ready? Do they have the skills? Do they have the knowledge? Do they understand? Are they ready? That's the first one. Psychological safety is number 2. Is our organization creating a space to allow vulnerability, to allow people to learn AI? Number 3, workflow integration. So our process is designed for human AI partnership. So we have people that are working and doing their knowledge work. We have AI agents. Have we allowed this partnership and workflow to be put together? Skill evolution. Do we know what people need to learn next? Are companies even asking that question? If I got a team that's doing GRC, let's just say they're deploying OneTrust or ServiceNow, are they ready to learn what's next? Number 5 is leadership support. Is the leadership support on board to make this transition to AI? Cultureness readiness. Does the culture reward adoption or does it punish it? Your example about tasks. All right. So I'm in my job and I want to learn. I want to, really stretch it. Is the culture going to allow you to do that? Resource allocation. That's another one. Time, money. Are they going to allow for this to happen? And then finally, can we measure the adoption progress and not just tool development and tool deployment? Can we actually see where we're going with these new tools and how they're effective and how they're being used? 37% that's the number that we're seeing across the board of success right now. People are spending so much money in AI, they're buying all these tools, but the psychological aspects of this and the human adoption, these 8 things that I just identified, they're not in place. So you can throw all the money and all the AI that you want at something, but if you don't have the human factor on this, you're going to fail miserably. And that's the gap we're talking about. And no one else really is kind of go out and do anything.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think at the end of the day, people are spooked by AI and thus the adoption rates are suffering. And I mean, in a way, I can see why. It's like, yeah, it's an amazing tool, but if you're automating away a lot of tasks that humans traditionally would have performed, I don't know how you get around the fact that that's going to decrease the need for human labor. Like if 90% of tasks are then performed by AI, it's like, yeah, some new tasks will be created for people to do, but you got to do something with the people and all of that work that traditionally they would have performed. Like, where do they go? Yeah. So I don't know if I was going through school right now, or if I had a kid that was going to college these days, I would tell them to either become an AI developer or go into the trades. Essentially, right. It's like, any thoughts what we can do with people that are, I mean, it seems like we can upskill people to some degree, but at the end of the day, there's just going to be less need for human bodies, right. Essentially. So what do we do with those folks, do you think?
So great point. The first is stop treating AI like a search engine on steroids. It's so much more capable. Right now, you can go out and build a website in literally 3 minutes. So if you got a product you want to sell, if you have an idea you want to pitch, if you want something, you can go on Lovable right now, write your English, type in and build a website and launch it. You can go out onto GoDaddy or one of these places, get a URL and market anything. So I'll give you a good example. I listened to a podcast. It was Stephen Barrett. It's Diary of a CEO. And he had this guy on who basically had started 100 businesses. And here's what he said. He said, the impulse of having an idea until you finally do something about that idea, that has to be very, very close. So if you have an idea for a business and you want to use AI to help go deploy it, and you wait 10 weeks, the likelihood of that coming to fruition is going to be very low. What you should do is start experimenting. And I use not one, not two, not 3. I use 4 different AIs right now for doing my work, different things for different reasons. And I use different ideas. Here's the other thing I would tell people: put things in memory. Okay. So if you're solving a problem, like, for example, I'll give you a real good example. I donate my time at the Atlanta Mission. I teach Bible to homeless people. All right. I'm not an expert. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a pastor. I'm just a guy who understands human sociology and psychology. And I know that, teaching biblical principles like love your neighbor and things like that is important, but I don't have the verses in my head. So what do? I ask ChatGPT Where is a principle that we can use that'll help these homeless men, that ties to the Bible, and allow me to see and make an example of it that'll be meaningful in their lives? And that's like 4 different prompts, brings it all together. I put that in memory, and I built a whole category and library of this. So now when I'm down there talking to men who are struggling to get back their lives back on, I have not only a reference that I can point to, a book that's been around for thousands of years, but I also can give the psychological ramifications of that. That's using AI. That's really using AI, and then put it into memory. So my point here is you need to experiment. That's the first thing. The second thing, spend time learning. Believe it or not, life rewards 2 things: risk-taking and learning. They need to be combined. So you got to ask yourself the hard questions. What do you want to learn? What is your curiosity leading you to? And explore that. I mean, I would actually use one of my AIs to be like my personal OS, where I can actually just bounce ideas and say, hey, chat, you know what? I was out walking down the street and I saw flowers in the middle of winter, at my neighbor's yard. Take a picture of it and say, what kind of flowers survive, 32-degree temperatures and are good for this? Kind of curiosity will get you working with AI. It'll allow you to ideate, and you might find something that you just, you've never done before. And then take those ideas and put it into another AI and start working at it in a different angle. This is the way that you start leveraging AI. You build things, your curiosity leads you, and you keep it, and you start building your own personal operating system. That is the key. And that's how we leverage these technologies to major advantage.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could see there where, people essentially become solopreneurs that can start a business very easily with the assistance of AI. It's like having, a whole team basically to help you refine your ideas and come up with new ones. And you leverage it as a tool, but essentially as people. So yeah, I could certainly see where obviously it's a huge enabler for people that are, I think, naturally curious. But I don't know, like, knowing the general public, I don't know how many people are just naturally that curious, and I think a lot of people just kind of want to put in a day's work, put their heads down, execute their tasks, and then, log out at the end of the day. I don't think everyone's naturally an entrepreneur or naturally curious, or, I hate to say it, but some folks just aren't very intelligent either. It's like, how can folks that don't have those sort of characteristics, obviously they could use AI to augment these things, but I think it still takes a certain level of curiosity that's innate, or a certain level of intelligence that's innate, to be able to properly leverage these tools. Like, are we going to approach a situation where essentially everybody is either an AI manager or an entrepreneur, or they're in the trades? Like, do you see that playing out that way, or is there going to be another place for people that are more, task oriented, to just kind of plug into some of these systems?
I see a bifurcation in the United States. I can't speak for Asia or Europe or Africa, but at least I see this. There's going to be the ones that are basically technology complicit and not savvy, but they know and understand. There's going to be that level and percentage of people. So let's just call it 15, 20%. And then there's going to be the others that don't. I hate to say that gap is going to get larger and faster, but it truly is over time. So what do you do about that if you don't have a curious brain? Quite frankly, I mean, you're going to have to see how this is going to affect your life either way. There's going to be a time in our lifetime where we're going to actually have robots around us. It's coming. Elon Musk said he thinks that 1 million robots in the next 5 years. So this is the Optimus project. So can you imagine just sitting here? I'm looking out my window at my street and just seeing a robot run. Well, I'll tell you what I saw 2 weeks ago. I saw a Chick-fil-A little cart driving down the street in Buckhead delivering Chick-fil-A to somebody. So whether you like it or not, AI is going to be in your life. The question is, how do you make your life better using it? That's the question. It will happen naturally in some respects. Like, hey, I want delivery of my Chick-fil-A, and it just shows up and it's not even a person. You punch in the code and it opens up and there it is. And it's going to happen either way. The question is, are you going to be part of it or not part of it? And that's more of a question I cannot ask. I can just predict. But we can look at the way technologies has worked. It's happened in waves in our lifetime. So we saw the internet, we saw cellular, now we see AI. The thing with AI is happening really, really fast. And it's going to touch all of our lives in one way or the other. And whether or not you elect to be part of it or not is your choice. I would say I would want to be part of it just to see if I can use it to make a better life. Again, if you're a farmer in Iowa, you may not. But, quite frankly, farmers are using AI with drones to go out and look at their crops. They're using AI to program the plows that are basically bringing the crops in. So it's going to touch everything. And even if you're, buying something on Amazon, the search engine is going to get much better because it's all AI driven. So there's really no escaping it. The question is, are you going to participate or aren't you? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think at this point it's inevitability. There's no question about that. I just have to wonder. It's like, I don't think the human brain, from an evolutionary psychology perspective, is equipped to deal with exponential progress on a technological front. Like we still haven't gotten our heads around smartphones and social media, and here comes AI, where it's, orders of magnitude, I would say, more impactful on human lives and human brains. How can we, I don't know, maybe you have some thoughts on this, maybe you don't. How can we equip people to deal with this insane pace of change and progress? Like you said, people aren't necessarily equipped from a psychological perspective to deal with this. Like, what's the best way to help, fortify people in such massive changing times, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, the first thing is we need to put guardrails on AI. As much as people don't think we should, there's legislation that was just put out about the federal government having governance over AI and AI literacy and what's published, and not the states. It's a little bit of a reversal from the way the United States is formed, because usually the states have it, but you need a uniformity. The second thing is, and it's a cautionary tale, is that the human capacity to be able to harness technology has always lagged behind the technology. I'll give one example here. The atom bomb. Literally, the people who are developing the atom bomb were not 100% certain that this wasn't going to take out everything. And we actually created a very, very destructive technology that exists today. A man's ability, human ability, to be able to harness that, but then to be able to use it in a capacity that actually is wise, there's always a gap there. So we have to be very careful with that. So those are the two first statements I would make. The second statement, on the individual level, you're not going to be able to consume everything. You're just not. The question is, what is it that you're consuming? So the question of what you're consuming is not about food. It's about intellect. If you spend all your time watching Netflix and you're scrolling, for dopamine, that's what I always call it, the dopamine machine, and you're scrolling instant TikTok, well, what are you consuming? Well, first of all, you're being entertained and you're being controlled by an algorithm. I would say if you really want to be able to master what's going on as far as AI and understand, stop the doom scrolling and look at what you're consuming from a human component. Because what you consume goes through your conscious mind into your subconscious, and it stays there, and it programs the way that you're going to behave. So if you're constantly consuming a bunch of crap off of TikTok and Instagram just to be entertained, you're never going to be able to be alert to the real things that matter in your life, like handling interpersonal relationships, developing friendships, being able to speak well. I mean, you might be able to pick up skills a little bit here and there, but the human dynamics has to come through practice of not ingesting all the time just consumables. And that's what we got to be careful of too. If I had kids, and this is back to your, your question about young people and how we bring them up, I would limit the amount of time they spend doing this, and I would get them to look at a much broader range of topics so that they can be exposed to too much. Your 20s should be about exploration. It shouldn't be about doom scrolling and, seeing what the latest trends are on TikTok or being conditioned by whatever agendas out there. You need to learn how, and here's the bottom line, I'm just going to land it. You need to learn how to think critically without AI. Learn to think on your own, be able to ask questions, be able to take diametrically opposed viewpoints. So if someone was to ask me, Pete, if you say, could you talk about, two sides of an equation? I'd say, yeah, probably, because I'm going to have empathy for that other side. And empathy, by the way, is one thing that AI does not have. That is a human characteristic. And that is something you need to develop as well.
Yeah. Well, to your point about thinking critically, I think if people could learn the foundations of thinking more so in school versus rote facts, essentially, or, just a list of bullet points, essentially. If people could think about how to put ideas together, learn more about philosophy and, the Socratic method and psychology and all these things that make us uniquely human and reasoning beings, I think we'd all be better off. And that's just, aside from the whole AI question, I mean, you have to be able to think to properly use AI as well,
Yep.
and to prompt properly versus,
Sure.
essentially being programmed by school to memorize certain things. It helps to be able to think. What do you think though about, I guess just in general, what do you think that, hiring managers are maybe doing wrong, or, cause you had kind of alluded to that earlier where you were saying how, it's less about hiring people that know how to think and more about, in my experience anyway, hiring people that know a set of certain tools or have these specific tasks that they've executed a bunch of different ways. How can we improve hiring, and what do you think hiring managers are doing wrong?
So as someone who has conducted 4,000 interviews,
That's a lot.
it is, and I actually wrote a blog post. It's on my LinkedIn and it went viral. And I also spoke at a conference too and got published. And here's some of the keys. First of all, most hiring managers qualify out. They don't qualify in. So what does that mean? I have a job description. Okay, here's my job description, all the stuff. And you're sitting there and you go, well, tell me about yourself. And someone will tell a little bit about their background and what they've done lately. And you're looking at the checklist and you got in mind what, you need. And this person's telling you. So right there and then you're kind of mentally checking off very quickly in the first 2 to 3 minutes. You're checking off the list. And what you're doing is you're qualifying out. You're looking for the things that they don't have that you need, rather than thinking, I'm going to qualify in. What are the unique values and attributes and things that they can bring that are unique to them that could benefit our company that's not on the job description? This is 90% of what goes on in interviews. They qualify out rather than qualify in. The second thing, most interviewers don't know how to ask the questions to allow them to get beyond the resume phase. And what I mean is everyone's got a resume phase. Why did you leave this job? Why did you do that? And you know what's really funny when you read resumes? Everyone's at 120% if you're hiring salespeople. Everyone's at 100% of quota, or, they did all these things. And it's like a whole string of this stuff. My first question is, well, if it's so great, why are you looking for something else? The third thing I think that people need to do is ask questions that people don't expect, which will give you an insight into who they are. Here's one question I love to ask. What would your enemies say about you? What would your enemies say about you, Pete?
That's a great question. Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever really thought about that. So you kind of put people on the spot almost, and you get a sense for how they think on the fly, I guess, which is, important because everybody's going to be thrown a curveball on
Yeah.
occasion.
So I love throwing in curveballs, and that's a trick question. And I'm going to give you the secret of it, why it's a trick question. So I've had people say, hey, I don't have any enemies. And I go, really? I go, Gandhi had enemies. Mother Teresa had enemies. Buddha had enemies. Jesus had enemies. These are the most spiritually aligned human beings in the history of human existence, and they had enemies. And you don't have any? So what I'm doing is I'm looking and seeing, can they actually do the self-reflection? Because your eyes go this way, they don't go this way. You know who knows me the best? My wife. You know why? She does. I mean, because she sees me all the time. She sees everything I do, and she will give you feedback, and she gives me feedback. And, that's just a trick question of your enemies will know you better. Your competition will know you better sometimes than you know yourself. So I asked that question in an interview, or tell me about a time where you failed. I want to, and just leave it at that. Failed in job, failed as a parent, failed in, learning how to golf. I want to hear something, right? And what did you do to overcome it? Or maybe you didn't overcome it. Those are the kind of questions you just throw in and see how people react to them so that you get a glimpse beyond the resume face. The fourth thing I look for is, can they match the conversational energy that's going on? So sometimes I'll just sit back and take a long pause. And that was only 5 seconds. And then come back and go, what were you thinking about as we were sitting there in silence? You wouldn't believe the crazy stuff I got. I had one guy thinking, what am I going to have for lunch? But these are the type of things that give you glimpses beyond the resume. And then you match that up and say, okay, if I'm hiring for a job that needs creativity, was this person creative during this interview? If I was hiring a job where they need to grind, like they're a BDR or an SDR and they need to really go at it, are they resilient? You need to test these things in an interview, but you can't make them hypothetical, and you can't make it so that people are expecting it. So that's part of the art of interviewing. And I would tell anyone listening to this, most companies are pretty lousy at interviewing people because they don't practice it. It's just kind of like, I got to do it. I worked for a company many years ago. It was Software AG. We actually spent a whole week on learning how to interview candidates and learned the whole psychology on this. It was 3 hours a day for a week. And I learned so much about Myers-Briggs, and I learned so much about psychology and so much about how people posture themselves and how you get beyond the posturing to get predictability on who you're hiring. Now, if you're hiring for a technical job, I'd say have someone code something for you. Have them do it on the fly. And you should be able to do that now with Claude 4.5. You can code stuff very quickly. And if they can't do it and they say they're a programmer, I would say, why not? But not a judgment. The question you want to get to is why. And Simon Sinek always says, the question is why. Why are people thinking this? Why are they behaving like they are? Why do they want this? Why are they coming and asking the questions they're asking? You got to get to the why. And then you can understand then the how.
Yeah. What's the thing behind the thing? I mean, I spend a lot of time in recruiting talking to people about their motivators. And I talk about this often, where I think that's really the fundamental thing that creates longer term career matches, is what somebody gets out of bed for in the morning. It could be their kids. It could be they're just money motivated. And it's really just about the dollar signs, which in a sales role, that's actually could be a pretty good thing. It keeps them grinding through those tough times and those slumps and, one missed quota quarter, that sort of thing.
So you brought up something that's really important. Motivation. We don't talk about it much. So I'm going to do this right on the fly. Okay. So I have a quadrant here. Okay. So external, internal, intrinsic, extrinsic. Okay. You have external and internal motivation. So what is that first? External motivation be, I'm lying in bed and I know I got to get up and go to the gym. I'll set my alarm clock at 7. I'll hit the snooze button. I'll hit my phone. I'll set it again. I'll say, maybe my wife needs to come and shake me. Hey, you need to go to the gym. All right. I'll go and I'll get some coffee. Everything's external. Internally motivated is you wake up, boom, even before that thing goes off and goes, I'm going to go. Boom, I'm out the door. I'm ready to go. I got my coffee already pre-made, and you're internally motivated to go. So you got external and internal. Then on the other side, you have intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation is pretty much what you see in Wall Street and with, salespeople. I'm going to go make a sale and I'm going to make money. And if I'm on Wall Street, I'm going to make $1 million from doing this arbitrage or, derivative selling. And then you make the million. And then you know what? You need the next hit. I'm going to make the next million and then the next million. That's extra. Intrinsic is, you know what? I'm going to do my job so I learn something new. I'm going to do what I'm going to do today so I unlock some new keys, and get some new insights. I'm going to go help someone with their job based on what I learned. So intrinsic and extrinsically motivated, external and internally motivated. Ideally, what you want is someone in all 4 quadrants, but the ideal one is to have someone that's intrinsically motivated and internally motivated, because what they're doing is they're waking up and they're at it. And their reward is not about the money or climbing the corporate. It's about what they learned and how they can help others. Those are the things about motivation that are really important. And that's the thing you need to look for. And that's the thing you need to explore. Are they just there for the money? Well, you're going to get what you pay for if they're just there for the money. Do you need to prod them? Like, hey, did you fill out that report? Did you fill out your CRM? Did you do this? Did you do that? Or did they do it on their own because they just want to be the best that they're doing? That is the key about motivation. We don't talk about it much because it's not understood, but that's the quadrants that you work from.
Well, and I would imagine related to that too, speaking of internal and external, internal locus of control versus external locus of control. Do people feel that things just happen to them, or do they take ownership over every little thing that they do or every mistake that they make versus that happens to them, And I find often that people with that internal locus of control make better employees because they're radically accountable and they're always going to work to correct mistakes because they take ownership of them versus complaining that the world is out to get somebody. And I think, ironically myself, I tend to be kind of external locus of control oriented, but I've had to kind of teach myself to be more of that internal locus of control person, to take ownership over things. And I think that that's something that can be learned, but it's difficult. You're essentially working against somebody's nature.
So the question is, Pete, do you have agency? That's the definition of it, is taking control of the things that you can control. And there's a billion things you can't control, but there's many things that you can. 2 of them are what goes in your mouth and what comes out of your mouth. Think about it. You have complete control over that. No one's holding a gun to your head and saying, you have to have those French fries and Big Mac, unless it's the only option, but usually we have options. So that's part of it. The other part of the equation is, we're all externally influenced. We are. The decisioning making process, and what I would be teaching young people is, how do you make decisions today? And it goes back to an interview question, it's like, walk me through a scenario where you had to make some decisions, in your life. One of the questions I always like to ask, and I'm back to just agency, is, when's the last time you learned something? And that's it. When's the last? And then I look, and this is another trick question. The question is, when's the last time you learned something new? And was it today? It should be today. But I've had people, take me on the magical mystery tour. 6 months ago, I had to do this for my job and I had to learn this and go to this class and get this certification and blah, blah. And I'm thinking, God, six months ago is the last time you learned something new. It should be every day, every single day. And I would ask yourself the question, have I learned something new today? Or, back to, you mentioned stoicism. Part of it is just to take an inventory of your day. Too often we get to the end of the day, we might be scrolling our phone, we watch a little TV, and then we just plop into bed. Here's why that's really a dangerous proposition. Your mind, your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, they are very, very important here as far as your sleep and how you program it before you go to sleep. Your subconscious mind runs all the anatomic systems in your body. So digesting your food or your coffee right now, heart, all the enzymes are going on, all run by your subconscious. If you don't take the time to just say, how did my day go? Okay, some things are bothering me. I'm going to put that aside. Some things I did really well. And just look at that and just kind of settle that down so that when you sleep and your subconscious takes over, you're basically not letting it grind to try to resolve some of these things that happen during the day. This is why people don't get good sleep. This is why they have, crazy dreams. It's just because they haven't settled their day down. You need to have a sleep routine. And not only is REM sleep and deep sleep really important, it is vital. And we're a sleep deprived society. We really are. So that's agency. You got control over that too. So, the question is, what decisions are you making? And I try to say, I'm trying to make the best decisions every moment of the day. And the average person is going to make anywhere between 800 to 1,000 decisions in one day. Ask yourself, how are your decisions today? Some are probably good, some not so good. And then you can start taking a look at things.
Well, I think certainly a lot of people, myself included, could do with a lot more self-reflection in general. I think often people, especially in the modern world, get so caught up in just executing tasks to the point from earlier that they forget to take a breath and just think for a while or reflect for a while. I often have my best ideas in the shower because I'm not doing anything else. Essentially, I'm kind of on autopilot. So it allows my mind to wander. And I think we need more of that. Everybody's so plugged in all the time. It's difficult to just kind of sit back and reflect. But to your point, yeah, you need some of that downtime, I think, to wrap things up.
What's really the trend I see at the gym nowadays, people walking around with tripods, taking videos. And I grew up at a time when we didn't have cell phones, but I get it. I get it that, you're trying to be an influencer or, you're doing what you want to do. Maybe your business is involved with that and you're trying to teach people. But at the same time, what's the quality of your workout? I mean, what's the quality of your concentration of being able to do something? If you got to worry about, okay, is this thing set up right? Do I have it in the right angle? It's just, you're right. We're distracted all the time. The real key is not to be distracted. And it's very hard to do. I often drive with no sound, just in silence. I actually kind of like it. It gives me time to just let's just put it this way. In a given day, you're going to have over 20,000 thoughts. So you got to think about your thoughts as this river going by, and you're standing on top of a bridge and the river's just flowing by. Some of these thoughts, you don't even know where they come from. They just, I'm sometimes I'm horrified at some of the thoughts I have. But here's the key. It's not the thought. It's the thought of the thought you had that counts. So if you catch one of these thoughts combined, you go, and start thinking about it. This is the first step, back to your point, of learning how to do critical thinking. You become the observer and the questioner of the very thing that's happening rather than being subject to an algorithm. So it's very different. It's a very different approach.
Absolutely. Well, we're actually coming up on time, so I just got to ask you the one last question, John.
Sure.
Is there anything we're not talking about in the industry, but we should be?
Yeah, great question. I think that we should be talking more about how we make our employees the best versions of themselves. And I mean, we get a lot of these sound bites on LinkedIn and all this stuff about leadership. But if you have a business, really take inventory of the culture you're building and then look at it through the lens of the people you've hired. If you have a large company, that is then your front row is your executives. But you really need to take time to do this every week, not occasionally a sales meeting, not a quarterly meeting. Every week, you need to be taking a temperature. And the reason why is you need to start encouraging psychological safety. It's huge, and create feedback loops. And the way I used to develop sales leaders was allow them then to go off and do it on their own and then come back and say, okay, what did you learn? What are you seeing? Too often we have at Microsoft, I'll just give you a good example. Okay. World's one of the largest tech companies. It was 7 layers between me and Satya Nadella. We had managers managing managers, managing managers, managing managers, managing managers, managing managers. Like, what the heck? No one even knew about if I had a great idea, it would just get lost in the sea. Create the feedback loops for personal innovation. Innovation starts with human beings first, not with AI agents, not with leadership. It happens with people on the front lines. History has shown this time and time again. Kaizen and Kanban, these philosophies that Japanese developed, incremental improvements, 1 degree, that kind of thing. That started with Toyota, with the assembly line workers stopping the line and saying, hey, you know what? We could do this better. Not the executives up top. And they basically went from 0.1% market share to having a great market share. We've seen this in so many areas, and quite frankly, it's something that we need to do more of rather than just delegate tasks and measure the tasks to see if you did your job or not. You have to really stimulate and build a culture to allow innovation on an individual level, and don't dismiss, even if it's the lowest of the lowest person on your totem pole, embrace them. That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and people that are closest to the problems probably have the best ideas how to fix said problems. And as a added benefit, you also get better retention that way. I can tell you as a recruiter, one of the things that I hear quite often, motivators for making a move, one of those motivators is often, my boss doesn't listen to me. I have all these great ideas and I'm just shouting into the void. So absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, so you want to talk about the difference between AI and human beings. This is gold here, what you just said. So either you're going to mine the gold or you're not. There you go.
Absolutely. Well, if people want to reach out to you and find you online, what's the best way to do so?
So you can find me at KwarsickConsulting.com, and you can also find me on LinkedIn. I would urge people to look in the next couple of weeks for this entire framework that addresses the humanistic side of AI and how we're deploying it. It's going to be quite revolutionary, and I think it'll actually give people pause to take a look at how are they deploying AI, how they're using AI, and quite frankly, get to the diagnostic of why AI is failing in their environment or not doing as well as they wanted to. So
very cool. Well, we'll put the links in the description as well.
All right. Thank you for your time too, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. Great to see you.
Thanks.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Talent Gap Fireside Chat. Don't forget to follow our page on LinkedIn and like and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube. Hit that notification bell to be notified when we drop a new episode. New episodes air every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern.